Welcome to Career Journeys, a series of videos by the Consortium for Public Education. Here we explore the career experiences and pathways of professionals from a wide variety of careers to help you think about the skills you'll need and the paths you might take after high school.
Hi, I'm Debbie Pixton with the Consortium for Public Education. Today, I'm interviewing Dr. Joylette Portlock, Executive Director for Sustainable Pittsburgh. Thank you so much for joining me, Joylette.
Thanks so much for having me, Debbie.
So, Joylette, tell me about Sustainable Pittsburgh and your role there. What exactly do you do as the Executive Director?
And so sustainability is really advancing progress at the intersection of environmental stewardship, of economic development, and of social equity. So at the same time, like recognizing we need to do all those things to build a company, an organization, an institution, a municipality, a region to last, to sustain into the future. And so what we do at Sustainable Pittsburgh specifically is we work a lot at the organizational level. We work with decision makers. We provide information, resources, kind of some strategic background for sustainability. We connect partners to one another so that they can work together to advance their progress. And we build networks so that people can really engage in peer-to-peer learning and really amplify that effort. So what do I do as the executive director? Well, I think part of the fun of the job is that it's a little bit of everything. So I have oversight responsibility for our entire operations, which means that, there's pieces of it that are communications. There's pieces of it that are programming and events. There's pieces of it that are educational and writing. And there's a fair amount of writing because as a nonprofit organization, a large portion of our funding comes from grants. So there's some fundraising and proposal writing in there too. And so it's a lot of different things.
Now, how did you end up as the Executive Director at Sustainable Pittsburgh? Can you tell me a little bit about your career path?
My career path, and I've often quipped that no one at my stage of their career majored in sustainability because it wasn't a thing when I was in college. So my career path has been a little bit seemingly indirect. I started in science, so both my undergraduate and graduate degrees are in biological sciences. I have a Ph.D. in genetics. I have always been very interested, though, at the intersection between complex information and people who need that information to make good decisions. And I majored in biology as an undergraduate, but I also minored in anthropology. So there's always been this kind of study of that intersection between science and society that's been fascinating for me. And so when I got out of grad school, I started working in kind of the biological sciences in that space around things that have an implication for health. Then later that transitioned to looking at, some of these, sustainability challenges in the environmental space and, at the intersection with, those things I was talking about before, economic development and equity. And how do we, that's really complex stuff. How do we get comfortable with that complexity and advance solutions that are going to work and really produce the best outcomes for people? And so that's kind of how I found my way into this work, though I would say that it is certainly true that some of those themes, especially around environmental stewardship, have been a thread for me for my whole life, even though they weren't something that I majored in.
So, Joylette, what do you enjoy about what you're doing now?
So this is a really exciting time to be in the sustainability field. There are a lot of opportunities, many of those made possible by recent federal investments, to really do the things that we've been talking about doing for a long time in terms of renewing our regional economy, advancing our environmental goals, and dismantling longstanding inequities in the region. So the ability to make real progress on that at a very at a good clip is just just really exciting. One of the things that is enjoyable is kind of what I was saying before, is I get to do a lot of different things. And so for me, that kind of ability to work on different kinds of problems, exercise different parts of my brain, is fun.
What questions should students be asking themselves if they are considering a career in sustainability?
I think two things are maybe required for a career in sustainability. One would be passion, and the other would be patience. I think I mentioned that at the outset. We have to recognize that our sustainability challenges are large and in many ways are generational challenges. None of the things that I mentioned at the outset here, we talk about inequities, we talk about environment, we talk about economic development. None of these are things that happened overnight, and none of them are things that will be fixed with the snap of the fingers or a simple solution, right? So all of these are things that will require sustained effort, and so the passion carries you through, but there has to be patience to be able to see those outcomes and to be able to work methodically toward them. So I think the questions that you might ask yourself are around, do I have those things in sufficient measure to do the work?
Would you mind sharing an experience where you faced challenges related to racial or gender equity in the workplace, and what strategies you felt helped you navigate those challenges successfully? So essentially, what would you recommend to students who may face similar situations in the future?
I think the world has changed a lot since a time when a slight based on race or gender might be incredibly overt. I think that, certainly have I experienced discrimination? Have I walked into a room and not been taken as seriously as I probably should have? Or have I, have I, been overlooked for an opportunity? Without a doubt. But can you always ascribe that, to a specific prejudice in that moment? Not necessarily. So what I might recommend to students who face similar situations in the future is, first of all, it's not great that that sort of thing can happen, but it's also not something to take personally or to internalize as an actual judgment on your actions or yourself. It's something that, keep your outcomes in mind, keep your goals in mind, and continue to try to work toward those.
Joylette, when you look back on your career, what do you wish you would have known as a high school student about equity in its many forms?
One thing that I would hope that folks in high school would recognize is that for us to solve the challenges in front of us, it really is going to take all of us, and to make sure to keep centered in your mind that everyone's lived experience is valid and valuable to those conversations, and to kind of carry that forward as an ethic for understanding how we might come up with some of those solutions. I think that recognizing that sometimes it's not just that your voice needs to be in the conversation, but it's also about who else's voice needs to be in that conversation, who maybe isn't there yet, that you can bring in.
Joylette, what's one piece of advice you would give to high school students, whether they're aspiring to work in sustainability or are just more generally committed to fostering a more inclusive environment?
I think that we are in a space where, especially post-pandemic, on a lot of these big challenging topics, it is really challenging to get folks together, really talking about real solutions that work for as many people as possible. And part of that, again, post-pandemic, is the fact that we have this kind of introduced isolation in our world. Folks are always on their phones, etc. I've been having just a lot of conversations lately, not professionally, but personally even, where it's just so clear that, and studies bear this out, by the way, that if we want to be happier, healthier, better at problem solving, the solution for human beings as social creatures is connection. It's connection to each other, and it is the strength of those connections and the depth of those connections that really makes the difference in bridging gaps of understanding, in problem solving, and in leading to happier, healthier people. And so one piece of advice for fostering a more inclusive environment, but also for coming together to solve any of these other big sustainability challenges, I would say, is to always work to recognize the humanity in others and always strive to connect.
Well, Joylette, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and experiences with us today. This has been fantastic, great wisdom for our students. So thank you.
For more information or to learn about other careers in the Career Journey series, visit our website and check back soon for our next installment. Thanks!